Hi, this is Doug with Doug Substack. I'm here today with Robert Peak, Chief Commercial Officer at JAXPORT, and we're talking about Jacksonville's place in global trade in this era of tariffs. Hi, Robert.
Hi, Doug. Good to see you.
Appreciate you having me here today.
Certainly.
So I mentioned in the opening this new era of global trade, but before we get to these U.S. trade agreements we've been hearing about, new trade policy, the Trump tariffs, can you just explain to us traditionally and today what Jacksonville's role in U.S. trade and global trade has been?
Yes, so the Port of Jacksonville is a significant port for the United States. It has a significant role in global trade. Just to give you an example, the Port of Jacksonville is the 10th largest port in the United States for handling shipping containers. Those big 20-foot, 40-foot steel boxes that move retail goods into big box retailers and home improvement stores. We're the largest in Florida for handling shipping containers, over 1.3 million a year. We are the third busiest port in the United States for handling automobiles. We move more than 500,000 automobiles a year, imported and exported. And the Port of Jacksonville is far and away the busiest in the United States for trade with the island of Puerto Rico. Okay. About 90% of everything that moves between the mainland United States and the island of Puerto Rico moves to the Port of Jacksonville. So from a statewide perspective, a national perspective, the Port of Jacksonville is a very large, significant port.
Yeah. So we've been, as I mentioned in the open, hearing a lot about these global trade agreements and new policies, tariffs. But before we get to all that, what are some of the factors that would affect JAXPORT's ability to grow in U.S. trade?
You know, trade really is complex in that there are so many different factors that can impact trade flows. But I think one of the single most enduring factor is simply population. So if you think about it, the state of Florida is now the third most populous state in the United States. 24 million people live here. There's 140 million visitors here. The visitors don't really make anything, they consume.
Right.
So that creates the population and the visitor base here. It's a tremendous consumer base here. It generates a tremendous amount of demand year in and year out. The population of Florida is growing. I think last year the state of Florida was the fastest growing state in the nation. The U.S. Southeast for years has been the fastest growing region, and this is where we serve as a port. So strictly from an import standpoint, there's this tremendous need for fulfilling that population base of consumer goods, and a lot of that's coming through the Port of Jacksonville. And in that same catchment area, we have a lot of manufactured goods that are then exported. And one of the really key factors a lot of companies are looking for when they're looking at locating any kind of manufacturing or distribution facility is, do you have the workforce?
Right.
Well, that massive population creates a massive workforce as well. So there's a lot of factors that can impact trade, but I think long term, like if you look for years and decades out, population is really a big one, and we have it here.
The growth in the market.
The growth, that's exactly right.
So what about that same question for global trade? What are some of the big factors that are affecting how well the JAXPORT is doing on a global trade market?
Yeah, so again, there's a lot of factors. It might be something that's happening far away. So it could be a trade policy or an internal economic policy in another country. Or, for example, I'll give you a concrete example, Doug. The Israel-Hamas war, okay? So when the war began, shortly after, the Houthis began attacking commercial shipping in the Red Sea. And those commercial ships, including container ships that come to the east coast of the United States, they typically would go through the Red Sea to get to the Suez Canal so they could cross the Atlantic Ocean and come to the U.S. East Coast. Well, with all these commercial attacks on shipping, most of the major container shipping lines said they're not going to use the Red Sea anymore. They have to go all the way around the tip of Africa. That's created a tremendous expense for those shipping lines. They've had to add more ships. It takes a lot more time to go around. That's increased the costs for those ships, and so it's increased the cost of shipping, and that can impact trade flows.
Yeah.
So this is something that's happening 6,000 miles away in terms of this war and these attacks that can impact trade flows right here in Florida.
Yeah, so a little more complicated on the global market. It sounds like. I mean, there's a lot of factors.
There's a lot of factors. It could be a natural disaster. There could be a tsunami or a typhoon in Asia that shuts down factories over there, and you see a change in trade flows into the U.S. for a while. So there's a lot of factors that can impact trade. Some that take place domestically, but some that take place far from here.
Yeah. So we mentioned these tariffs, and that's sort of the big a topic a lot of people have been talking about in this industry. How has it been affecting you now? These policies probably started roughly 6 months ago. They've been changing throughout the last couple of quarters. What have you seen here at JAXPORT in terms of the business?
Sure. So the short answer is that we have not really seen a significant impact from tariffs. So if you just look at our numbers, we're actually handling 5% more containers this year than we were at the same time last year. We're handling the same number of automobiles this year as we did last year. We're actually handling 4% more ships this year than we did last year. But as we mentioned, it's difficult sometimes to take one element, something like trade policy, and try to draw a direct line to a cause and effect.
Okay.
And if I can, let me give you a simple example of this, okay?
Because that would surprise a lot of people. Your business is up 5% is essentially what you're saying.
It is. Well,
Yeah.
the container business is up 5%.
Okay.
Yeah, which is the majority of our business.
Right.
So let me give you a simple example to this. We handle a certain type of cargo type that we call non-containerized, just like it sounds like it's stuff that's not in a container. And the biggest type of this is what we call forest products. So, and the biggest of that is what we call wood pulp. It's wood pulp that's imported from Brazil. But we also handle big rolls of paper that come from Europe. It's used for printing paper. We handle copy paper. Well, all these paper and forest products, they cannot get wet. So when they come off the ship, they have to go into a warehouse immediately, okay? And we have a port user that's been in the warehouse for many years, and they decided they were going to exit that business segment. We had another port user that wanted to take over that warehouse. So there was this transition that was taking place. The one port user was exiting the warehouse. Those volumes were kind of dwindling in the warehouse where the inventory was dwindling before the new port user came in.
Okay.
And when the old port user finally was finished, the new port user came in and started filling that warehouse because the demand was there. Well, our break bulk volumes this year are up 20%. Well, they're not up 20%. That doesn't really have anything to do with trade policy.
Right,
It's because of this very pragmatic change in the user of the warehouse.
Yeah.
And the same with our automobile volumes. We're handling the same number of automobiles this year as last year. And so did tariffs have anything to do with that? Well, the truth is that we had about 90 acres of property that we were using for automobiles that we kind of took out of production, if you will, so that one of our tenants could build a brand new state-of-the-art automobile handling facility, a $130 million beautiful facility that's being built right now. But for the whole year, we didn't have that space available to handle the automobiles. So it really prevented us from growing in a significant way. So we have to be careful about someone saying, well, there was a new tariff, and now look, the automobile volumes have done X or Y, and therefore I want to draw a conclusion. It might or might not have had anything to do with
because
tariffs.
the natural conclusion would be if there's a tariff on those autos that you're importing, business should be down, you would think.
Right, and so if the overall business is flat, knowing we've taken a lot of production space out of production for a construction project, for me that's a bit of a win, right? But I'm just giving that as an example. It's hard to just point to one thing and say, hey, there's a definite cause and effect, because there's so many different factors that can impact trade flows.
Right, because you're seeing an increase in the market here in the Southeast. You're seeing additional capacity for doing
Correct.
business. So I understand what you're saying. So looking ahead for JAXPORT, what does the future look like? Are you going to new lines of business, expansion, all those sorts of things?
Yeah, so we're very bullish on our future because for a number of reasons. We've made and continue to make big investments in the port. We have the big harbor deepening project, which finished a few years ago to deepen our shipping channel. We have new cranes that have come in. We've had a tenant that's completely revamped all of their container property so we can handle a lot more containers at the port than in the past. We can handle the bigger ships. So we've done a good job with support, candidly, from the city, the state, and the federal government of getting our facilities ready to handle the business that can come in. I mentioned there's an automobile tenant. It's about a $130 million project to build a brand new facility to handle more automobiles to come into the port.
Wow.
I mentioned the non-containerized break bulk cargoes. There's a tenant that's looking to build a couple 100,000 square feet of new warehouse space at the port to handle even more of this product. I believe, Doug, that the demand is there, the market is there. If we can continue to provide the facilities, modern, efficient facilities, if we can continue to do that, I really think the sky's the limit in terms of what we're going to be able to grow in terms of the port.
Well, fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you explaining what's going on out here at JAXPORT and what the future looks like and any effects that we've been seeing from these new trade policies. Thanks a lot, Robert. I appreciate you joining me here today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you for joining us here on Doug's Substack. We'll see you next time.